Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. The OP in our first story was just great for keeping his composure. He had to serve a rude customer who demanded alcohol in a restaurant that doesn't serve it. Well, let's see what he got in the end. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Sir, that is not alcohol. I work at a small Chinese restaurant that generally only has locals and regulars with the odd visit from out of the area. Because it's so small, on a normal day or night, we only have one waitress on a shift. We were having a relatively quiet night, so I was sitting around pouring soy sauce into bottles and cleaning chili jars. This table of 4 people walked in, and they're all relatively nice, and I give them the good old casual greeting and sit them down. They do their stuff and order their meal, and for drinks, they only get table water, which is normal. When I bring out their food, the old man, henceforth OM, asks for a bottle of the red wine. Now, we don't serve alcohol, nor do we even have a BYO. I'm not yet 18, so I can't even handle alcohol if we did. I told him we don't have any alcohol, and he goes on this rage, pointing out a bottle that was on our shelf. I knew what he was pointing to. It was our Chinese vinegar. Now, these bottles look remarkably like Asian alcohol. They're green with red on it, and all the writing's in Chinese, and I told him that, sir, that's vinegar, not wine. He went on an alcoholic rage, yelling about how I couldn't know what alcohol was because I was underage and how I was hiding alcohol from him, and he would make a complaint on our Facebook page. His children and wife look embarrassed and are just trying to hide themselves. And his wife gives me a look that just says, do it and he'll regret it. So I went and got a bottle of the vinegar and put it on the table. OM makes a really big deal out of saying crap like, wasn't that easy? Waitresses in my day would have done it in 2 seconds. I walk away, and when I turn around to check, he spat a mouthful of vinegar out and onto the plate and was trying to wash out the taste of Chinese vinegar with water. To be fair, the wife did come up to me later and apologize for his idiocy. They never made that Facebook post and paid $20 for the bottle since we couldn't use it again. And our second story. You don't want me to give you a lot of money? Okay, whatever you say. I got married about 5 years ago, and I wanted to surprise my new wife on our wedding night with a one-night stay at an upscale hotel before our honeymoon. I decided to reserve us a room at the Chase Park Plaza, one of St. Louis's oldest, most historic, most beautiful hotels. At the time, reservations could only be made in person or over the phone. Very weird, I know. I think they wanted to make the hotel seem more exclusive. Here's how the call went. Hotel shift manager. Hello, this is the Chase Park Plaza. How can I help you? Me. Yes, I'd like to make a reservation for date. Hotel manager. I'm sorry, sir, but rooms can only be reserved for whole weekends. 2-night stay minimum. Sorry, bye. Me. Wait, that's not a problem. I'd be more than happy to pay for a 2-night stay. But please be aware that we'd only actually be there for 1 night. Sir, I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Bye. I'm sorry, I don't understand. If I pay for 2 nights and only stay for 1, then that actually helps you because you won't have to incur the expenses related to us being there for one of those nights, as long as I pay for both nights. But we'd lose revenue from incidentals for that 1 night, like meals and valet parking and so on. So, sorry, bye. Sir, I'd be more than willing to pay extra to cover those things. Bottom line for me, this will be our wedding night. I'm willing to negotiate and pay a lot of money for this, and I'm confident there's a price where you'd be okay with this. Let's be reasonable. Name your price and it's yours. Sir, it doesn't work that way. Bye. He hangs up. 10 minutes later, I found a Groupon for a 1-night stay at that same hotel for $60. A normal 1-night stay at that time ranged from $250 to $500. Oh, geez. That's what happens when hotels try to artificially inflate their value. And our last story. I went from school teacher to chairman of the board of a big company for the sake of revenge. When I was a tiny kid, my father was my best friend. He worked multiple jobs to support my family, all while powering his way through law school. He even built a couple of small businesses from the ground up with a couple of his friends. All while doing this, he managed to be the best dad ever, spending as much time as he could with my mother, myself, and my baby siblings. One day, we found out that he had stage 4 stomach cancer, the kind that you don't recover from. My mother and I stayed by his side all the way till it was all over. The last memory I have of my father was when he was completely immobile, practically a vegetable at this point, with tubes going in and out of his body, and me just praying that he'd still be able to remember who I was. All the guy could do was smile at me just to let me know that he still recognized his son, even if the doctors told us most of his memories would be gone. Eventually, he fell into a coma for some days before waking up to say goodbye to my mother, who was by his side when he died. She was a housewife, so we really didn't have much to go on after his death. Enter my grandfather. He was one of those self-centered person types who makes everything about himself. After my father died, he'd used the newspaper obituary to boast about his dead son's grades and achievements, which I realized seemed to be the only thing my dad was to him. Just in case you were wondering, yes, we are Asian. My mother was grieving and trying to find a way to make ends meet, and my grandfather graciously offered to help her control my father's 2 businesses to help support us. My mother agreed because she didn't have any experience. While we grew up, the 2 businesses didn't provide much for us, likely because my father was one of the big reasons they were thriving. Mom was in and out of multiple jobs just to keep us floating. My grandfather offered to help put me and my siblings through school. I managed to score some scholarships with some good schools growing up, so thankfully, he didn't have to do much for me. But we were really glad that he helped out with my siblings. After I made it out of school, I found out that my family was broke and my 2 siblings were still making their way through medical school. My sister even offered to stop and just get a job, but I told her to keep going because she was doing so well, and she deserved to graduate. My grandparents had cut us off because they didn't approve of the directions my siblings took in life, especially my sister, who was for them too female to have a career in medicine. My grandmother is a bit of a misogynist. Why are you wasting your time and money becoming a doctor? You're just going to have children and quit. I was working as a high school teacher when I was contacted by one of my dad's old business partners for one of his companies. After I asked him about how the company was doing, he told me that my grandfather, who was still in control of my father's shares, was siphoning money from the company for himself, and he was earning way more than he was giving me or my siblings for our education. So all our lives, he'd been making us feel indebted to him for money that was supposed to be ours to begin with, and he lied to us by telling us that Dad's companies weren't making any money for us at all. We also realized that when he cut us off, he was cutting us off from our own money, forcing my siblings to drop out and give up careers they'd been working their whole lives for. What's worse is that this was our father's money, and we know that he'd wanted it to help us provide for our futures even after he died. And here comes his a-hole father basically crapping on his legacy for his own enrichment. I even found out that he used his position to take possession of the company's office space and force them to set up shop in a smaller, cheaper office while renting the original space out under his own name to the company's competitors to make money from them too, all while I had to work multiple jobs to help my mother and siblings pay the bills. Cue revenge. My grandfather's biggest weakness has always been his pride. In fact, I suspect that he wanted us to think he was helping support us out of his own pocket because he wanted everyone to think he was some kind of hero, when in reality he was financially choking us. I recognize that no matter what my grandfather said, my siblings, my mother, and I were legally the owners of my father's company shares. So after having a statement signed by the 3 of them, I approached all the board of directors, sans my grandfather, and let them know that I was now the sole representative of my late dad's estate. My grandfather also made himself chairman of the board, according to the company records. He did no work for the company at all, so the position was just a name that allowed him to receive money. So I convinced them that since he was only chairman as representative of my father's estate, that made me the chairman. I did not intend to keep the position because I didn't have the experience for it. Then I contacted other members of my extended family about my grandfather's unethical practices with the company's office space. He was eventually pressured by them into evicting the company's main competitor from their office space. Served them right for conniving with my grandfather to take the company's old office space. At the next board meeting, I prepared for the moment I'd been waiting my entire life for. When he entered the conference room to preside over the meeting as the chairman, he found his chair facing away from the table, with all the board members already seated at the table, and like a Bond villain, I spun the chair around to reveal to him that I'd been the one sitting there the entire meeting. I told him that the company and my family no longer needed him, and that I'd be taking control over representation of my father's estate. "Do you know that I'm the one who put him and his siblings through school?" he said in shock. I only went, "No, Dad did." The sheer look of embarrassment on his face was perfect. I've never seen him look so defeated in my entire life until that moment. And this sort of satisfaction could not be achieved by simply ratting him out. I stepped down from the chairman position and took a job in the company's treasury department as a bookkeeper with a meager salary, but at least now any profit sharing or dividends that the company released would go to where my father wanted it to go. And finally, one of the first decisions I got to make as a board member before stepping down was to give my mother a permanent job that she deserved. My grandfather is now jobless, he spends all his time at home, and because he spent his life being selfish and self-centered, he has no friends. All he had going for him was being able to power trip over other people and boasting about his assets and achievements. Even my grandmother has had it with him, and the two don't even sleep in the same room anymore. I hope he lives the rest of his life regretting that he didn't live his life with more compassion and humility. Update. My sister just informed me that he's kinda miserable now because his wife is angry at him because he siphoned what's left of their money to an extramarital sugar baby he had in probably another attempt at getting someone to affirm and glorify him. I guess he hasn't learned. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.